Ladies and gentlemen, imagine a world where every ordinary day hides a secret doorway, where a single glance, a fleeting moment, or a whisper of possibility could change the course of your life forever. Now, imagine that doorway is calling you, daring you to step beyond the familiar and into the extraordinary. What would you do? Imagination has always been the silent architect of human progress, shaping visions of tomorrow while fueling the soul with sparks of possibility. In the tale of the Russet Witch, imagination is not presented as a small indulgence, but as an invisible force that allows a person to see beyond the confines of ordinary life. It becomes a lantern in the shadows, guiding someone out of routine and into the realm of inspiration. The character's journey reflects the inner dialogue that so many of us carry, the dialogue between what we see in front of us and what we can dare to envision when our hearts drift into dreamlike wonder. The power of imagination is often misunderstood. Many think it is only daydreaming, a diversion of the mind when one is idle. Yet, when seen more deeply, it is far more than passing thoughts. Imagination is the ability to see things not as they are, but as they could be. It is what allows someone working in an office to dream of a world far beyond the paperwork. It allows the artist to see colors in empty canvases, and the inventor to see machines in piles of metal. It allows us to create futures that do not yet exist. The Russet Witch in the story symbolizes that magnetic pull of imagination, the voice that whispers possibilities, when the rest of the world insists on practicality. Consider how life becomes when imagination is absent. Days blur into each other, duties become repetitive, and dreams feel like fragile fragments that vanish in the morning. Without imagination, life becomes mechanical, a clock ticking away without offering a melody. But when imagination enters, suddenly the ordinary transforms. A simple desk becomes the launchpad of great ideas. A familiar face in the crowd turns into a story of possibility, and a quiet moment can blossom into visions of something greater. Imagination has this power to ignite meaning in places where none seem to exist. In the narrative, the Russet Witch is not simply a figure, but a symbol of that power. She embodies the pull of the unknown, the inspiration that makes someone stop and question their routine. She represents the moment when the mind dares to paint with colors no one else sees. Many people live in the safety of what is known, but imagination dares them to peek into what is hidden. It challenges them to believe in experiences that are yet to be lived, adventures that lie just beyond the horizon. This is why imagination is not only about dreaming, it is about cultivating courage. The courage born of imagination is quiet, but profound. It is not the loud bravery of soldiers marching into war, but the subtle bravery of a person who looks at their life and dares to say, "I can be more than this." Every great achievement begins this way. The greatest journeys of the world, whether in art, science, or personal growth, started with someone imagining that something else was possible. The tale's atmosphere captures this delicate balance, where the ordinary threatens to consume the extraordinary, yet the spark of imagination refuses to be extinguished. For many, imagination remains only a companion during moments of solitude, a private escape into dreams. But its true power is revealed when it becomes the compass guiding action. Dreams without imagination are lifeless, and actions without imagination lack vision. When someone combines both, life changes. The Russet Witch serves as a reminder of what happens when one listens to that inner calling, but also what happens when one ignores it. She stands at the edge of the ordinary world, offering glimpses of something more. For those who dare, imagination transforms into the force that shapes their destiny. It is also important to understand that imagination does not always manifest as grand visions of fame or fortune. Sometimes it is the small, quiet ability to see beauty where others see nothing. It can be found in the way a child looks at a cloud and sees a castle, or in the way a musician hears a melody in the rhythm of rain. It can be found in a worker imagining a better tomorrow for their family, or in someone who pictures a world of kindness in a place filled with struggle. The Russet Witch reminds us that imagination, no matter how small, keeps the spirit alive. Throughout life, people are faced with the pressure to silence their imagination. Society tells them to be realistic, to focus only on what is practical, to abandon the playful visions of youth. Yet the story shows that the whisper of imagination never disappears completely. It lingers, waiting for the moment when the heart is open enough to hear it again. This is why many feel restless even when their lives are stable. Because imagination still calls them to explore, to expand, to embrace the unknown. Imagination is not only about personal fulfillment, but also about transformation. When one person dares to imagine, it creates ripples. The inventions we enjoy today, the music we cherish, the stories that inspire us, all of them began as sparks in someone's mind. The courage to follow imagination does not only change the dreamer, it changes the world. The Russet Witch stands as a metaphor for this transformative energy, reminding us that inside every routine life is the possibility of something extraordinary waiting to emerge. What makes imagination so powerful is that it belongs to everyone. It is not reserved for poets or thinkers, it is the natural gift of being human. Anyone, regardless of circumstance, can close their eyes and envision a different reality. This is what sustains people in difficult times. It is why prisoners dream of freedom, why workers dream of progress, why dreamers of every age and culture imagine a brighter tomorrow. Imagination is the seed from which hope grows, and without it, even success feels empty. The Russet Witch is not only a character, but a reminder that imagination should never be silenced. It should be nurtured, cherished, and expressed. It should be allowed to inspire action, to awaken courage, to turn monotony into meaning. It is through imagination that the spirit is kept alive, and through it, life transcends routine to become a story worth telling. The tension between routine and adventure is one of the most defining struggles in human life. A constant pull between the comfort of the familiar and the thrill of the unknown. In the world of the Russet Witch, this theme comes alive as we watch a character weighed down by the duties of ordinary existence, while being tempted by flashes of something larger, freer, and infinitely more exciting. It is a story that resonates deeply with anyone who has ever felt trapped in routine, yet secretly longed for something daring that might break them out of monotony. Routine is often misunderstood. It is not always a prison. Sometimes it is a foundation. It gives structure, stability, and predictability to life. Routine allows us to meet responsibilities, care for our families, and maintain order in a world that can otherwise feel chaotic. Yet when routine takes over completely, it can suffocate the spirit. Life becomes a series of repetitions, each day blending into the next, until years pass without leaving behind any sense of adventure or discovery. This is the danger the tale reveals so clearly, the way routine can dull imagination and suppress the hunger for something extraordinary. Adventure, by contrast, is the opposite force. It is unpredictable, uncertain, and often uncomfortable. It carries the risk of failure, but also the possibility of transformation. Adventure is stepping outside the safety of what is known and moving into territory that has no guarantees. It is the decision to embrace a new path when everyone else chooses the well-trodden road. Adventure asks us to put aside comfort in order to pursue meaning. In the narrative, the Russet Witch embodies this calling, an invitation to move beyond the cycle of routine and enter the world of possibility. The struggle between routine and adventure is not a simple choice of one over the other. It is a battle within the human heart, where comfort collides with courage. On one hand, routine tells us to stay safe, to follow the expected path, to avoid unnecessary risks. On the other hand, adventure whispers of growth, transformation, and experiences that could change everything. The character's conflict mirrors our own. Everyone faces moments when they must decide whether to stay in the safety of what is familiar or to chase something bold and uncertain. Many people choose routine because of fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of losing what little stability they have. It is easier to stay in a predictable job, to live in a familiar town, to follow the rules others have laid out. But choosing routine without adventure often leaves a person restless, quietly haunted by the question of what could have been. That haunting is what makes the story of the Russet Witch so poignant. She is not just a figure. She is a reminder of the adventures one could have had, the paths one could have taken, if only courage had outweighed fear. Adventure, however, does not mean abandoning all responsibility or recklessly throwing away stability. True adventure often begins within. It can mean daring to think differently, daring to speak the truth when silence is easier, daring to step into opportunities that frighten you, but excite you at the same time. Adventure may take the form of travel, love, creativity, or reinvention, but its essence is always the same. It disrupts routine in order to awaken something deeper. It is through adventure that people discover who they truly are. In every age, those who have chosen adventure over routine have shaped the world. Explorers who sailed into unknown seas, scientists who questioned accepted truths, artists who broke conventions. All of them embraced the discomfort of uncertainty to find something greater. Their courage reminds us that life's most rewarding moments rarely come from routine, but from daring leaps into the unknown. The Russet Witch stands as the symbolic invitation to make those leaps, to stop sleepwalking through repetition, and instead wake up to possibility. The contrast between routine and adventure also reveals a deeper truth. The two need each other. Routine without adventure is suffocating, but adventure without routine is chaotic. A life entirely of adventure may leave one unanchored, while a life entirely of routine may leave one unfulfilled. Balance is what makes life rich. Routine provides the soil, but adventure plants the seeds that allow something new to grow. In the tale, the tragedy lies not in the existence of routine, but in the refusal to answer the call of adventure when it appears. Every person, at some point, encounters their own version of the Russet Witch. It may appear as an unexpected opportunity, a chance meeting, a sudden dream, or a bold idea. In those moments, one has to choose retreat into the safety of what is already known or step forward into the unknown. These choices often define entire lives. Those who take the risk may face hardship, but they also find stories worth telling, memories worth keeping, and transformations that last a lifetime. Those who do not may remain safe, but they may also find themselves wondering endlessly about what they missed. The Jazz Age itself, with its music, movement, and breaking of tradition, reflected this same struggle. It was a time when people were tired of routine and reached for adventure in every form. They sought freedom from old restrictions, embracing new art, new lifestyles, and new possibilities. It was a cultural expression of what the Russet Witch represents on a personal level: the restless desire to escape repetition and embrace the vitality of life. In the end, the struggle between routine and adventure is not about choosing one forever. It is about listening to the voice inside that calls for balance. It is about not letting routine extinguish the fire of curiosity and not letting adventure destroy the foundation of stability. The power of the Russet Witch lies in her role as a reminder, a figure who calls to the dreamer within each of us, asking us not to surrender completely to routine, but to hold on to the courage of adventure, even when it feels uncertain. The unknown has always been a source of fascination for humanity. It is the place beyond the map, the moment beyond the present, the experience not yet lived. In the story of the Russet Witch, the unknown takes on a symbolic form, standing as a constant invitation to step beyond what is comfortable. It becomes the voice that calls someone out of their neatly ordered life and whispers of things mysterious, unpredictable, and possibly transformative. To embrace the unknown is to open oneself to risk, but also to discovery. It is the very tension that makes life more than just existence, because it is in the unknown that growth, adventure, and meaning are found. The allure of the unknown comes from its contrast with the predictable. Routine and familiarity give security, but they also create boundaries. Within those boundaries, everything feels safe, but it also feels limited. People begin to sense that there is something more, even if they cannot define it. That sense is what draws them toward the unknown. It may be frightening, because what cannot be seen cannot be controlled, yet it is precisely this mystery that makes it irresistible. The Russet Witch embodies this pull. She is the symbol of all that is elusive, beautiful, and unreachable, the reminder that something greater lies just beyond reach. The unknown is alluring because it awakens imagination. When we do not know what lies ahead, our minds begin to paint pictures of what it could be. Sometimes these pictures are of wonder, sometimes of fear, but either way, they stir emotions that routine life cannot. In this way, the unknown is both a challenge and a promise. It is a challenge because it forces us to leave the familiar behind, to step into uncertainty without guarantees. It is a promise because it offers the chance of transformation, of discovering something that could change everything. Many resist the unknown because they cling to control. They prefer certainty, even if it means limiting themselves to the narrow confines of what they already know. Yet deep inside, most people long for the unknown because it carries the hope of something better. Every dream, every ambition, every act of courage involves stepping into the unknown. Falling in love is stepping into the unknown. Starting a new journey is stepping into the unknown. Even creating art or ideas is a leap into uncertainty, with no assurance of success. The allure is irresistible because it is tied directly to possibility. Without the unknown, there is no growth, no discovery, no evolution. The story reflects the human truth that the unknown often comes in fleeting moments. It might be a person who appears unexpectedly, an opportunity that knocks once, a choice that seems small but carries enormous consequences. The Russet Witch represents that fleeting chance, that sudden glimpse into what could be. She is not just a figure of beauty or mystery, she is the embodiment of every possibility that lies outside the ordinary. When ignored, the unknown passes by, leaving only regret. When embraced, it becomes the force that reshapes a life. The unknown is not always glamorous. Sometimes it is uncomfortable, filled with struggle and pain. But even then, it leaves behind lessons and transformations that routine life never could. A person who dares to embrace the unknown may stumble, but in stumbling they discover strengths they never knew they had. They may suffer loss, but they also gain stories, wisdom, and resilience. The allure lies not only in the chance of reward, but in the richness of experience. Even failure in the unknown often feels more alive than success in the familiar. Throughout history, progress has always been born from the unknown. Explorers left behind their homelands to sail into seas where no map existed. Visionaries stepped into fields where the outcome was uncertain. Ordinary individuals made extraordinary choices because they trusted the allure of something beyond the obvious. The Jazz Age itself was a cultural leap into the unknown. People breaking away from tradition, exploring new forms of music, art, and identity. It was a time when society, as a whole, flirted with uncertainty, embracing both its risks and its freedoms. The Russet Witch fits into this spirit, as a reminder that personal lives, too, can be transformed by stepping into mystery. The unknown also tests the heart. It reveals how much courage a person possesses, how much they are willing to risk, for the sake of something greater. Some people are content to admire the unknown from a distance, to treat it like a dream, but never take a step toward it. Others take the leap, knowing they may lose comfort, but believing that life without risk is not truly life at all. This decision, more than anything else, determines whether someone will live a life of stories or a life of safe repetition. The Russet Witch does not force anyone to choose. She merely stands as a presence, inviting them to decide for themselves whether to remain in the known or venture into the unknown. It is important to understand that the allure of the unknown is not about recklessness. It is not about abandoning wisdom or chasing illusions blindly. It is about listening to the inner voice that knows there is more to life than what lies in front of us. It is about having the humility to admit that not everything can be planned and the courage to face what cannot be predicted. The unknown is not a guarantee of happiness, but it is a guarantee of depth. It ensures that life is not lived only on the surface, but in the deeper waters where true meaning is found. The tale captures the bittersweet truth that many ignore the unknown until it is too late. They cling so tightly to routine that they let opportunities pass by, only to look back years later with longing. The Russet Witch becomes the haunting memory of what could have been, the symbol of chances never taken. Yet, she also serves as a reminder to those still listening that the unknown is always calling. It may appear in unexpected forms, but it is always there, waiting for the courageous to answer. The allure of the unknown is, at its core, the essence of human spirit. It is what drives discovery, fuels passion, and keeps dreams alive. It is what prevents life from becoming only survival and turns it into a journey of wonder. The Russet Witch stands at the crossroads of imagination and courage, embodying that eternal mystery that tempts us to step forward into the uncharted, reminding us that the greatest treasures are often found where certainty ends and possibility begins. There is a profound difference between those who only dream and those who dare to act, and this truth beats at the heart of the story of the Russet Witch. Dreams are beautiful, intoxicating, and necessary for the human spirit, but without action, they remain fragile illusions. They live in the mind, providing temporary comfort, but never shaping the reality around us. Action, on the other hand, transforms those invisible visions into tangible experiences, into lives lived with intensity and meaning. In the story, this distinction is reflected in the quiet sorrow of a character who spends years caught between the richness of his inner longings and the narrow path of his external choices. A reminder that to dream without acting is to live only half a life. Dreams are the seeds of possibility. They are what make people lift their eyes above routine and wonder about what else is out there. They inspire hope in times of struggle and offer glimpses of a better tomorrow. But seeds left unplanted cannot grow. A person may dream of love, but without action, that love will remain unspoken. A person may dream of freedom, but without courage, they remain bound to their circumstances. The Russet Witch, shimmering as an image of beauty, mystery, and allure, embodies those dreams that stir in the heart. Yet she also highlights the tragedy of inaction. She appears like an invitation, but the invitation is meaningless unless it is accepted. The gap between unfulfilled dreams and realized action is often bridged by courage. Many people cling to their dreams because they are safe Inside the imagination, everything can be perfect. In dreams, risks do not exist, failure cannot touch us, and outcomes are always in our favor. To act is to risk imperfection. It is to expose oneself to rejection, loss, or disappointment. Yet it is only in action that authenticity is found, because it is only when one moves from thought into reality that they begin to live fully. Dreams without action eventually sour into regret, while even failed action carries a sense of dignity because it was at least attempted. The tale shows how easy it is to get caught in the comfort of dreaming. The protagonist imagines possibilities, pictures alternate lives, envisions the thrill of the unknown. But he does not step forward. He allows the pull of routine and the fear of uncertainty to hold him in place. In doing so, he experiences a deep longing that never fully leaves him. The Russet Witch, then, becomes not just a symbol of imagination and mystery, but of every dream left untouched, every chance not taken. She becomes the haunting reminder of what happens when desire is not matched with action. Every life holds moments where a decision must be made. Remain a dreamer or become a doer. These moments often come quietly, without announcement. It might be the decision to start a new path, to speak words left unsaid, to pursue an opportunity that seems too daring. Many ignore these moments, convincing themselves that tomorrow will bring another chance. But tomorrow often mirrors today, and the longer action is postponed, the harder it becomes. This is why the divide between dreaming and acting is so important. To act is to honor the dream. To remain passive is to betray it. The world has been shaped by those who chose action. Every invention, every piece of art, every movement that changed history began as a dream in someone's mind. But it did not stop there. Someone took the risk of making it real. That risk often meant failure, ridicule, or sacrifice, but without it, the dream would have died quietly, known only to its dreamer. The allure of the Russet Witch mirrors this truth. She calls forth the dream, but she also demands a response. She tests whether the dreamer will remain entranced in fantasy or step forward into the uncertainty of action. The tragedy of unfulfilled dreams is not just the absence of success, but the emptiness that lingers when we know we could have tried but didn't. People often look back at their lives not regretting what they failed at, but regretting what they never attempted. That haunting question, what if, can become heavier than any failure. In this way, dreams without action are not harmless. They are burdens that grow with time. The story captures this sense of lingering sadness, the way missed chances echo in memory, the way they leave shadows where bright experiences could have been. Yet, it is also true that action does not always bring the outcome we imagine. Sometimes the dream is shattered. Sometimes the risk ends in loss. But even then, action brings a kind of fulfillment because it frees the spirit from the chains of wondering. It allows one to say, I tried. That act of trying is itself a victory because it is proof of courage. In fact, many of the richest lives are not built on uninterrupted success, but on a series of attempts, failures, and triumphs born of action. The Russet Witch represents the dream, but the true story lies in whether the dreamer chooses to follow her or only admire her from afar. The Jazz Age. The setting from which this story emerges was itself a time of daring action. People broke away from old rules, from restrictive traditions, and embraced new forms of living. They did not only dream of freedom, they acted on it, sometimes recklessly, sometimes bravely, but always passionately. That spirit is mirrored in the lesson of the story. To bring life to dreams requires a willingness to leap, to risk, to move beyond thought into experience. It is not enough to imagine a new way of living. One must actually live it. Every individual must face this truth. The distance between a fulfilled life and a hollow one is often measured by the courage to act. Dreams are a beginning, but they are not the end. They are meant to be fuel, not shelter. They are meant to ignite movement, not replace it. The Russet Witch shines as a symbol of possibility, but the deeper meaning lies in the choices of those who encounter her. Will they allow their dreams to remain untouched, fading into regret? Or will they step forward into action and discover the richness that comes only from daring to turn vision into reality? The beauty of the unattainable lies in its paradoxical power to both inspire and torment. It is the shimmering horizon that always seems just out of reach. The dream that glows brighter precisely because it is impossible to fully grasp. In the story of the Russet Witch, this idea becomes a central thread, woven through the character's longing for a figure who represents more than desire. She represents every unreachable possibility, every dream that feels too distant, every vision that lives forever in the realm of imagination. The unattainable becomes a mirror for human yearning, reminding us that sometimes it is not possession that gives life meaning, but the pursuit itself. Human beings are drawn to mystery, to things they cannot easily define or obtain. The unattainable captures attention because it resists completion. Once something is fully owned or known, its power begins to fade, but the unattainable grows stronger because it leaves space for imagination to fill. It is like a flame that burns brighter because it is never consumed. The Russet Witch, with her elusiveness, embodies this principle. She is not only a character, but a symbol of everything that is forever slightly beyond our reach, calling us to chase, to wonder, to dream more deeply. The beauty of the unattainable is tied to its ability to inspire growth. When people reach for what they cannot have, they stretch themselves. They expand their vision, their effort, their creativity. Even if they never grasp the goal fully, the act of reaching transforms them. A person who dreams of touching the stars may never leave the earth, but in trying, they discover inventions, insights, and resilience they never knew they had. The unattainable challenges the human spirit, not to settle for the easy or the ordinary, but to rise higher, to become more than one thought possible. At the same time, the unattainable can be bittersweet. It creates a longing that never completely fades, a hunger that cannot be satisfied. This longing can become a source of pain, especially if one mistakes the unattainable for a failure. But the truth is that some things are not meant to be captured. They are meant to awaken the soul. The Russet Witch represents this duality. She is not someone who can be fully possessed, Yet her presence enriches the story, because she represents desire in its purest form, the desire to reach beyond what is ordinary, to touch the extraordinary, even if it slips through one's fingers. The unattainable also serves as a reminder that not everything in life must be owned to be meaningful. Some experiences are valuable precisely because they remain out of reach. A breathtaking sunset cannot be held in one's hands, yet it leaves a memory that lingers. A piece of music fades the moment it is played, yet it stirs emotions that last a lifetime. The unattainable operates in the same way, giving depth to human experience by existing as something that can be felt, imagined, and admired but never fully held. The Russet Witch captures this quality, existing as an eternal presence that sparks longing but resists completion. In many ways, the unattainable teaches humility. It reminds us that no matter how much we achieve or how much control we think we have, there will always be mysteries beyond our grasp. This realization can be frustrating, but it can also be liberating. It frees us from the illusion that life is about total mastery or possession. Instead, it invites us to find joy in the pursuit, in the striving, in the moments of beauty along the way. The unattainable becomes not a source of despair, but a source of wonder, urging us to keep reaching, keep imagining, keep moving forward. The allure of the unattainable is also what fuels much of human art and storytelling. Great novels, songs, and paintings are often inspired by desires that cannot be fulfilled, by loves that cannot be realized, by dreams that remain out of reach. This longing infuses art with power, because it connects to something universal, the feeling of wanting what cannot be had. In the story, the Russet Witch embodies this artistic muse, a figure who inspires by her very distance. She becomes the echo of every dreamer's longing, not to be attained, but to be pursued endlessly. In personal life, the unattainable often takes the form of ideals. People imagine perfect love, perfect happiness, perfect freedom. These ideals may never be fully realized, but they push individuals to strive, to create, to improve. The unattainable becomes a compass, pointing toward values and visions that guide life's direction. Without it, ambition fades and imagination withers. With it, even ordinary lives are lifted by the pursuit of something greater than themselves. The Russet Witch stands as a symbol of this guiding force, a reminder that the unreachable can still shape the journey in profound ways. The danger, of course, lies in mistaking the unattainable for something that must be possessed at all costs. When people obsess over what they cannot have, they may overlook the beauty of what they already hold. The lesson is not to lose oneself in endless longing, but to let the unattainable serve as inspiration rather than obsession. The character's yearning for the Russet Witch illustrates this tension. His inability to reconcile desire with acceptance leaves him haunted. Yet even in this haunting, there is beauty, because it reveals the depth of the human heart, its capacity to yearn endlessly for more. Ultimately, the beauty of the unattainable lies in its ability to keep the spirit alive. It ensures that there is always something more to dream of, something more to strive toward, something more to imagine. Without it, life would collapse into complacency. With it, even the most ordinary days are infused with a sense of wonder, a reminder that just beyond our grasp lies a mystery that keeps us moving, reaching, becoming. The Russet Witch is that mystery, that unattainable figure who ensures that the heart never stops longing and the soul never stops seeking. The spirit of the Jazz Age was more than a cultural period. It was an awakening of energy, freedom, and defiance that swept across lives and reshaped how people saw themselves and the world. It was a time when music pulsed with vitality, when rules were questioned, when art and ideas broke out of their cages and demanded to be felt. The story of the Russet Witch draws from this same energy, capturing the restless desire to escape the grip of convention and move toward something alive, with color and possibility. This spirit is not confined to history. It is a timeless force that appears whenever people grow tired of being confined by old limitations and choose, instead, to chase bold, new ways of living. At its core, the spirit of the Jazz Age was about liberation. It was about breaking away from patterns that no longer fit the times, about refusing to let tradition define the boundaries of life. The people of that era embraced change not only in fashion and music, but in thought and lifestyle. They wanted freedom of expression, freedom to love differently, to dance differently, to think differently. The Russet Witch embodies this restless yearning, this refusal to remain contained. She is the whisper of possibility that tells the individual that life is meant to be lived fully, not cautiously, and that passion is more valuable than predictability. What made the Jazz Age remarkable was its courage. It was not simply a celebration of pleasure, but a declaration that old structures of control would no longer dominate. In the same way, every person who feels the pull of the Russet Witch faces a choice: to remain in the safety of routine or to claim the courage of freedom. Courage in this sense does not mean recklessness. It means choosing authenticity over conformity, daring to live a life that reflects the truth of one's desires rather than the expectations of others. The music, the art, and the stories of that age all carried this message of daring, a message that still resonates because it touches something universal. The spirit of the Jazz Age also celebrated intensity. Life was not to be lived half-heartedly. It was to be embraced with energy. Jazz music itself, with its improvisations and syncopations, reflected the idea that beauty could be created in the moment, outside of rigid order. In the story, the Russet Witch symbolizes this intensity of living, the allure of passion over mediocrity, of spontaneity over repetition. She is not a figure of safety, but of vibrancy, urging those around her to step into a world where life is measured not by years lived, but by moments truly felt. Freedom was not without its risks, and the Jazz Age understood this. To embrace freedom was to accept uncertainty, to live without guarantees. The same is true of the spirit the Russet Witch represents. She does not promise comfort or permanence. She promises vitality and meaning. Many shy away from this kind of freedom because it threatens the stability they cling to. But for those who embrace it, the reward is a life rich with stories, with discovery, with an authenticity that routine can never provide. The period also taught that reinvention is always possible. People transform themselves in those years, shedding identities that no longer fit and creating new ones. This reinvention was not only social, but deeply personal. The Jazz Age. Spirit insisted that you could always begin again, that no one was bound forever by the past. The Russet Witch, elusive and alluring, reflects this possibility of transformation. She is not static. She is ever shifting, always representing something new to be discovered. For those willing to follow her, she becomes a guide toward reinvention, toward becoming more than one ever thought possible. This energy of reinvention also reminds us that human beings thrive when they refuse to stagnate. The danger of routine, the suffocation of predictability, is that it convinces us to accept life as unchanging. But the Jazz Age proved that change can be exhilarating, that transformation can breathe new life into weary hearts. The Russet Witch embodies that call to renewal, urging us to keep moving, keep exploring, keep reinventing ourselves in pursuit of what is alive and true. The spirit of the Jazz Age was not only about individuals but about community. Jazz itself was collaborative, born of improvisation and exchange between musicians. The culture of the time was built on shared energy, people inspiring one another to live more boldly. This same spirit exists whenever people come together to push boundaries, to encourage one another toward greater freedom. The Russet Witch represents the spark within the individual, but her influence extends outward, affecting others, reminding them too of the possibility of life beyond the expected. The allure of this spirit lies in its refusal to settle. It refuses to accept that life should be endured rather than celebrated. It refuses to let fear dictate the terms of existence. It refuses to let imagination be silenced. This refusal is what gives the Jazz Age its timeless power, and it is what makes the figure of the Russet Witch so compelling. She refuses to be ordinary, refuses to conform, refuses to disappear into the grayness of routine. She insists on being vibrant, mysterious, and free, and in doing so, she becomes a symbol for anyone who feels trapped by convention, but still longs for liberation. The lesson is not confined to history or literature. Every life has its own Jazz Age waiting to be lived, its own season of awakening, when the spirit of boldness and reinvention becomes irresistible. It may arrive in youth, or in midlife, or in the quiet years later on, but whenever it comes, it carries the same message: life is too brief for timidity. To ignore that call is to miss the richness that makes existence worthwhile. To embrace it is to live with passion, courage, and freedom. The Russet Witch calls each of us toward that embrace, embodying the eternal spirit of the Jazz Age. A spirit that never fades because it belongs not to a decade, but to the timeless human desire for vitality and truth. Life is a journey shaped by the choices we make between routine and adventure, imagination and action, desire and fulfillment. The story of the Russet Witch reminds us that within every ordinary day lies the potential for extraordinary transformation, if only we have the courage to listen to the call of possibility. Imagination allows us to see beyond the walls of our present, offering visions of what life could become, while adventure challenges us to step beyond comfort and embrace the unknown. Dreams inspire, but it is action that gives them life, turning fleeting thoughts into lived experience. The allure of the unattainable teaches us to cherish longing, to pursue growth even when certainty is impossible, and to find meaning not solely in possession, but in the striving itself. Finally, the spirit of freedom, audacity, and reinvention. The timeless energy of the jazz age urges us to live fully, boldly, and passionately, refusing to let fear or convention dictate the terms of our existence. When we weave together these lessons, a pattern emerges. Life's richness comes not from the safe, the predictable, or the easily attained, but from the courage to dream deeply, act boldly, and embrace the unknown. The Russet Witch stands as both a symbol and a guide. A reminder that the extraordinary is always within reach for those willing to step forward. She calls us to honor our imagination, pursue our desires, risk the uncertainty of adventure, and reinvent ourselves whenever the opportunity arises. To follow her call is to live a life not merely endured, but fully awakened, vibrant, and endlessly inspired. In the end, the message is simple yet profound. Dare to imagine. Dare to act, and dare to embrace the mysteries that lie beyond the familiar. Life rewards the bold, nourishes the dreamers who take steps into the unknown, and transforms those who refuse to settle for the ordinary. The Russet Witch reminds us that every moment holds the possibility of magic, that every choice can lead to growth, and that the pursuit of the extraordinary is what makes a life truly remarkable.